there's a football game today. There is a preseason football game on
That's
today.
weird to wrap your head around. That's weird to
I'm
have
so
your head
excited.
around.
I'm
gonna
so
watch
excited.
football. And it's the two most boring teams. I looked at the Steelers backups and the Cowboys backups, and I'm like, none of these guys. The only guy I scouted was like Simi. Oh God, the name's escaping me. He's from Stanford. He's some white wide receiver from Stanford. But there's a preseason game on today, and
We'll get to see
awesome.
Dwayne Haskins. Nice.
That is, apparently he's lighting it up in practice. Apparently
Really?
he's a new man. He's a new
No
man.
way. I refuse to believe that. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite NFL and NBA analysts, Matthew Sponauer and Theo Ash. How are you guys today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm in the middle of a move right now, and I'm trying to figure out like how to get a bed, how to build a desk. But all things considered, it's going pretty well so far.
So you're not much of a handyman then, are you, Matt?
I'm doing a really good job on the desk. Thank you very much. I'm just not finished yet.
Okay.
But I'll show you when I'm done. I'll post a picture of it or something. It's going to look really good.
It just sounds like you're moving slow.
No, it's just that it takes a long time to get everything just right.
No, you're just...
I'm a measure twice, cut once type of guy.
Okay, that's fair. I just
That
measure
checks
faster
out.
than you.
I'm doing good, Blaiden. I don't have to move in anywhere. I'm back. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, we know that we know Theo's had his debacles with travel, and now it's Matthew's turn, and soon it'll be my turn. But for now, we make do with what we have. If make sure you guys, as always, like, review, leave a comment, all that good stuff that you've been doing. Keep helping us grow this podcast on all platforms. And if you haven't yet, make sure you follow at Stay Hot Pod on TikTok for some great content there as well. We do have an announcement that we'll kind of finish the announcement at the end of the episode, but we are doing a TikTok fantasy league with some of the biggest TikTokers, not even just in sports, just some of the biggest TikTokers in the game in general.
The biggest TikTokers that replied. The biggest TikTokers that replied to our
saying
to our
the
call.
biggest TikTokers in the game makes it sound like Addison Rae is about to be drafting in this league.
Are you saying
some
that
really
Addison
big?
Rae? You're saying that Addison Rae's not in the league?
Yeah, spoiler alert. No, but there are some big TikTokers, and there's a bunch of sports people, so it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be a big sports TikTok league, but no, we don't have Addison Rae, we don't have Charlie D'Amelio, so sorry to burst your bubble if that's what you were expecting. So stay tuned for the announcement video. It'll play at the end of the show if you are on YouTube. If you're listening to this and want to check it out, go to our YouTube channel. It is a banger. I can attest, even though I haven't seen it yet. We're excited to see the video ourselves, and we're excited for the league to start. So, kind of big agenda today. We're talking some NFL news.
Wait.
Wait. Okay.
Can I talk about our fantasy league?
Wait. What fantasy league are you talking about, Theo? Are you talking about negative one PPR?
Yeah. There's also one more fantasy league that we're in that I thought would just be funny. And the way that I'm doing it is it's -1 PPR. And so if you're picking up yards but not getting first downs, you are losing points. Your players are losing points in said league. Also, every team gets 5 cornerbacks, and every cornerback stat is worth -1 points, except for touchdowns. So if you get a pick, it's -1 points. Every yard you return it is -1 points. Tackles, -1 points. But if they score a touchdown, it's pretty much an automatic win. I will also be randomly assigning kickers each week, that you get 2 of them that I will be providing every week. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. I know I roped Blaiden and Matthew into this, along with some other random assortment of people from various aspects of my life. I think that's going to be a fun one too, although I don't think it's got quite the star power as the other one.
Yeah, I am excited for that league, Theo. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Are we gonna keep tabs on that, like on Twitter and stuff too, or?
I might.
I don't know. I think it'll
we'll see what
funny.
we'll do something with it. I think it's.
I'll throw out some updates if my team does really well, but if I'm bad, I'm not talking about it.
I think the other thing is
that's a very Matthew thing.
I might randomly add and subtract points throughout the year just based on if I feel like it.
Can you do that?
Yeah, commissioner powers are all encompassing, but it won't be unfair. All right, it'll be fair. But if someone does something wrong, they might get some points.
That ruins the integrity of the league. I have no faith that I'm not going to get screwed over. Yeah. It's one thing if
just for that you lose for questioning my integrity.
Yeah,
you lose 20 points.
I can't say anything bad about Theo now.
Well, everything Theo says comes true. We already know this. So
all right, okay. The Stay Hot TikTok League will be legit though. That one is not like this. I just think that this is funny, and while we're talking about fantasy,
we will not be tampering in the Stay Hot TikTok League. Anyway, jam-packed episode today. We're gonna be talking some NFL news. Thank God there's NFL news, NFL preseason narratives. But before we hop into that, we are gonna start with the NBA free agency and the massive week the Lakers had, adding a ton of pieces around their big three.
I have not looked at the numbers recently, but I was very disappointed when they brought back THT, Monk, and Nunn, because I don't think they'll be the oldest team of all time now. I'm pretty sure when they fill out the roster with the last couple of guys being undrafted free agents, it's going to make them just young enough not to be the oldest team ever.
And does that mean they're not going to win the finals now? Does that like ruin?
No, they're still great, but it ruins what I was cheering for. I thought it would just be fun if they were the oldest team ever.
They might be. I wonder if they're the oldest median team of all time. Because the Jazz had a 38-year-old and a 37-year-old, bringing up the average. I wonder if by sheer amount of old people, the Lakers have the oldest median.
I mean, the Lakers are going to have 2 or 3. I mean, Carmelo Anthony is 36. He's going to turn 37. LeBron's going to turn 37. They're really old, but they're really, really good. I love what they did. I don't think you could have asked for much more out of them after they traded for Westbrook than what they did, outside of maybe you're disappointed you didn't get Patty Mills, and maybe you would have liked to see Caruso come back. I think Caruso not coming back is pretty rough. But I love the Monk addition. I love Nunn. I think they got enough shooters. Dwight Howard coming back is cool. I think playing him is going to be a little tough with the spacing, because if you have Russ out there and then AD, who didn't shoot well from 3 last year, and then Howard as well, it's going to be pretty cluttered in the paint. But
yeah, I know they were talking about playing Davis at the 5, and I always think that would be, if you could even play LeBron at like power forward or something, and then have Davis.
I think you'll see more of that. Yeah, I think you're going to see more of that, hopefully. But Melo coming back, he's going to be a shooter. Wayne Ellington is going to be a shooter. And they've got like now 12 guys who seem to be in that rotation. And I think that's really important, because if all of a sudden a couple of those dudes either get hurt, or it's like, I don't know, random name, Trevor Ariza or Bazemore isn't really working out, you can lose them. You don't need them. You can figure out what rotations work the best and then whittle it down to 8 or 9 guys, get ready for the playoffs. So I really like that. I also think Malik Monk was just a steal. I'm surprised that no other rebuilding team wanted to offer him a little contract and see what he had. He shot really well from 3 last year. 40% on 5 attempts a game in just 20 minutes. So I thought what they did is good. I think they've got a ridiculous amount of talent. They're older. Their shooting isn't amazing. Their chemistry, they have a lot of guys who haven't played together, or a lot of guys who haven't played much together. Those are all things they're going to have to figure out, but they're going to be good. And I think with the amount of talent that they have, you're willing to take on those problems. You can get past them.
Yeah. It's just all about staying healthy. And there is a lot of Lakers slander right now, like retirement home, old. Like, I feel like all the Lakers haters are kind of shooting themselves in the foot by making fun of them now, because now they can't be like, oh, what a super team when they win. Although, again, super team's a kind of a lame criticism, but I feel like, there's a lot of hate directed towards the Lakers right now because they're LeBron and the Lakers. But
and the super team thing is way overblown. I get there were a couple of guys who are taking cheaper contracts to go play for the Lakers, but some of these guys like Carmelo Anthony, he was playing for minimum last year too. Or it's like Russell Westbrook, you just traded for him. It didn't have anything to do with like free agency. And if I was a Lakers fan, I wouldn't care how I got my talent.
Right.
If the Hornets could get a bunch of talent and free agency, I wouldn't feel bad if that's what they did. They can't.
Right.
But I'm not going to feel guilty over how my team gets good.
No, and it's you also have to be a certain level of good to even be able to build something like this, because no one's taking, any kind of pay cut to go play with, Sacramento. So you kind of have to be a pretty special talent to even like people are taking pay cuts to come play with you. Man, you're really good. Yeah. So the whole super team thing. But obviously no one is actually arguing that in good faith. So it kind of doesn't, it's just funny. So
yeah.
Theo, hold on. Theo, what's your problem with the Sacramento Kings, huh?
What you said the Hornets, so.
You said the Hornets first. So I was just reiterating.
Mm-hmm. Sacramento
Sacramento's a beautiful city, man. I love Sacramento.
Hasn't attracted large free agents or
they are success. Right now. They are not good.
They have Darren Fox,
man. Going into this free agency, they weren't quite as good as the Lakers. Just a little bit behind them. So I think that's what drove free agents to go to the biggest franchise that's competing for a championship over Sacramento.
And I know we talked about Lonzo in the last episode and the Bulls, but now we really got to talk about the Bulls, because the Bulls are good now.
They're really good.
Yeah.
That's going to be a super fun team. I'm super excited for it.
Lonzo Bull.
You're going to see a lot of people be like, well, they're not contending though. They went all in and they're not really serious contenders. And maybe they are super, super fringe contenders. We need everything to break our way and all the chemistry to work to actually be competitive. But that team has, easily I could see them making the Eastern Conference Finals.
Easily. I mean, the shot making on that team is kind of great. Vucevic, DeRozan, and Zach LaVine. I mean, we just saw the Suns and really even the Bucks make the finals on high level mid range shot making. The Bulls have guys who can score. I mean, DeRozan's not the greatest 3-point shooter, but they've got guys who can score.
I will see, but they've got a big part of DeRozan being your star is okay, well then how does that hurt the spacing? But when you have Vucevic and you have Lonzo, and when you have LaVine, you're good to go. I think they're going to be really fun. They're definitely there's a lot of teams in the East that I could totally see making the Eastern Conference Finals. But I totally commend them for being aggressive, knowing that if they weren't, Zach LaVine would leave. That's the key. So maybe they're not the most competitive team. Maybe not the number one team in the East or the number one team in the league, but they're very competitive. They're going to be super fun. And there's a lot of other teams, more teams than not, wish they were the Bulls. So I love their moves. I think Lonzo's a great fit. Getting DeRozan out of nowhere, kind of. I mean, not out of nowhere, but I didn't see it coming a week ago. Is sweet. So if I'm a Bulls fan, I'm excited.
No one laughed when I said Lonzo Bull.
Lonzo Bull. I actually kind of think that's funny.
I haven't seen NBA
you guys just didn't hear me.
Yeah,
that's it.
And I guess the other NBA news is Kawhi hasn't signed yet. We still think he's coming back to the Clippers. I feel like.
I mean, didn't we talk about how it doesn't make sense why he would make a big deal about going to LA if he was just going to leave LA?
Yeah, but I mean, he's obviously considering things if he hasn't signed yet, I don't know.
I wonder what his thought process is right now, but he made a big deal about going to Los Angeles. And I'm not sure. I haven't heard any news about it, so it'd all be speculation.
And the Clippers were good.
I don't know who could offer what.
The Clippers were really good, even when he went down.
Yeah, the Clippers were good. I just wonder if there's some teams where he's like, if I signed and traded and went there, they might be better than the Clippers. But I think it makes the most sense, especially coming off a pretty big injury where he's going to have to sit a lot of the year just to go back to the Clippers.
Yeah. Any other under the radar moves?
Theo, your guy stayed home.
My guy? Oh, yeah, Chris Paul. Yeah. Chris Paul, we signed JaVale McGee, and I immediately logged on to YouTube, and I watched the 9-minute JaVale McGee low-light Shacked in the Fool compilation.
McGee is a really good player.
He's not bad. It's just, no, he's a good, if Dario is going to miss the year with the ACL injury, I'd much rather have McGee than Frank Kaminsky coming off the bench. I just think it's funny to watch his Shacked in the Fool moments because they're funny.
Yeah, no, I'm not I'm not denying that. But don't let some dumb plays early in his career let you think that McGee's bad. There's a reason why contenders always want him. There's a reason why he's always playing for contenders. He's very nice.
He's an Olympian.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Have you been watching Team USA basketball at all?
I have not.
Yes.
I haven't watched a single game.
It's ugly.
I just heard that I heard that they made the finals.
They did make the finals, but it's like I watched the team. They turned it on in the second half yesterday, but like, oh my God, I don't understand. They're boring to watch like for long stretches. I
mean they're in serious trouble against France. They just don't play like a team. It's ISO ball way too much. The ball doesn't move at all. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough to watch sometimes, but they're so talented. It might not matter.
Yeah. Anyway, just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, the only event I was watching in the Olympics was the track events, mostly the 400 hurdles. That's my thing, you know.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the Warriors. Maybe not so much in free agency, but I think I said something about how I thought they needed to be aggressive with the end of Curry's prime, and they were not. They have not been aggressive so far. It's not over. They can still make moves. I don't know who could be signed and traded. How maybe that's where Kawhi wants to go or something. Or maybe they can pull off a Dame trade, right? But just picking your picks and just, getting some decent role players and just hoping Clay is going to come back 100% is cool. And it's going to make the Warriors really good. I do think they're going to be a good team next year, but I haven't seen any Golden State fans who aren't disappointed that they didn't do more. Even though on paper the team is pretty good, it's going to be, they put themselves in a position where it's an uphill battle to beat some of these super talented teams like the Lakers and the Nets. And it's not impossible. Maybe they get injured. Maybe Clay comes back 100%. Maybe the rookies contribute right away. But that's a lot of things you need to break your way to be contending, when it shouldn't be like that when you have a player who's as good as Steph Curry. So as of now, I'm not super, super thrilled with the moves that they've made as far as being aggressive enough for an all-time player who's in their prime.
General rule of thumb is if you're making a lot of if statements going into a season, probably not a good thing.
And really with the Kuminga pick at 7, he's not a very pro-ready player. He wasn't very good. Now he's got potential, but he doesn't look very good already in the games that they've played him in. And I haven't watched them. That's just the reports I've heard. I'm not trying to say that I've seen it, so maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if you can expect him to come in day one and contribute. And it's just like, even if he doesn't get ready by the time Curry is out of his prime, how much is it worth it? Unless he becomes a superstar himself, but that's asking a lot for a 7th pick. So I just would like to see Curry have like a big team around him and make the West even more fun. But
yeah. One last thing for the NBA. What are your expectations for the Heat now that they got Lowry and they didn't get DeRozan?
They're going to be a lot of fun. I think getting Duncan Robinson back as well was the big one. If they didn't get him back, the spacing would have been really, really rough. But with him and Lowry and Tucker and Hero and Bam and Jimmy, I mean, you've got a lot of guys on that team. I think we're getting to a point, and it's been a long time, the East is probably better than the West right now. I haven't really looked at it. I probably need to go look at it, but the East is...
I mean, it's definitely closer.
It's definitely...
There was a stretch where the West was by far and away better. And with the exception of the Nets, there was no one. And maybe the Bucks, but...
Well, I mean,
I'm saying, the Bucks won the finals.
I'm talking about like the LeBron Cavs era. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're talking like, okay, yeah.
I think the interesting thing about the Heat, they're very talented. They're a team with a lot of talent, and they're in that sort of, not maybe the top contender in the East, but they're obviously, like, if they made the finals, you wouldn't be stunned, but it would be kind of an upset. But think about the way I'm looking at it is Bulls, Heat, Sixers, Bucks, Nets. One of those teams has to lose in the first round.
Yeah.
And I don't know who it's going to be, But
the Heat scare me a little bit because on paper they do look really good, and there are a lot of big names and star power on that team. But I do feel like they've kind of mismanaged. They saw their team make the finals in the bubble, and I feel like they've made moves that are a little bit mismanaged because of that. Like Jimmy Butler getting $50 million at age 36 is what's going to end up happening. They extended him for a long time. You know, they didn't trade Tyler Hero when his value was high, and they could have maybe gotten James Harden for him. I think that was a mistake. Like Lowry's getting up there in age. Like I just feel like they're making this big push and it's going to hurt them down the line, when I don't view them as like finals favorites or even especially likely to get there. So I feel like, again, it's a little bit like the Warriors, where it might end up you've got all these guys extended long term who are probably going to be out of their prime and it's going to hurt the team long term to go all in right now. But I don't know if going all in right now was the best move for them, because the Nets are still around in the Bucks, so I the Heat scare me a little bit. But that being said, if things break their way, they should be. I mean, they do have a lot of talent, so maybe they can squeeze one title out of this if the Nets, get hurt again. They're probably capable of beating the Bucks. So like maybe they can squeeze out a title out of this, but I do think it's a little bit of a mistake. I do. I see
what you mean, but you can't make a push to be good without sacrificing part of the future. Like the Heat know that Jimmy probably won't be worth $50 million when he's 36. Same thing with the Chris Paul deal.
Right.
I mean, it pays him till he's 41. Yeah. That's what you have to sacrifice if you want to be competitive. I mean, the Bucks just did that, right? They gave up 3 picks and a $160 million contract to Drew Holiday, who's very good, but will he be worth $40 million plus 4 years from now? It's less likely than him being worth it, right? And I also kind of think that if we're going to sit here and say, well, the Heat went all in and they're not title favorites, so it was a mistake, then you could kind of say the same thing about the Bulls. And I don't think it's fair to say that about the Bulls, and I don't think it's fair to say that about the Heat. They're a really good team. They're going to be really strong. They're a fringe contender. They're obviously more of an outside of a chance. I'm not going to pick them to make the finals, but they're going to be super competitive and fun to watch. And there's a lot more teams that wish they were the Heat than not. So I don't blame him for going all in, because if you didn't give Jimmy that contract, your other option was just blow it up. And I think it'd be a really long rebuilding process. And I don't know if the assets you would have gotten from blowing it up would have been that amazing. Okay. So I don't blame him.
Also, I don't think you can sit here and be like, oh, we can't go all in because of the Bucks and the Nets. You can't just be like, we're not going to be good enough to beat those guys and like play scared. Like, if you're going to go all in, you're going to go all in, regardless of who's all in.
Yeah, I mean, when you could look at this and be like, okay, well, they lost 0-4 to the Bucks. Why do they think they can go win a title? But the Bucks could have told themselves the same thing when they lost in 5 to the Heat the year before. A lot can change. A lot of it's scheme. You have a great coach. You have a lot of talent. So maybe you make something happen. But it's way more fun to be competitive and maybe have a shot at making the conference finals and have at least be good enough so where you could see yourself beating any team, maybe if an injury or two goes your way. And I think that's where the Heat are. And that's not a bad spot to be, particularly since them going all in and the future assets they gave up is money and not picks. They really haven't given up that many picks in the future. I think it's just a 2026 swap.
Yeah, that's all fair.
So, but I think that kind of wraps things up for the NBA. There's a lot of NFL news to go over, but we'll try and keep it tight. Quentin Nelson has the exact same injury as Carson Wentz. I think that's really weird. And they also both have the exact same injury as our producer, Alex.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So they're not playing until November, or so Alex says.
Type in the chat, it's a bad omen.
It is a bad omen. It is a bad omen. They have no momentum going into the season now. How can we expect them to win anything?
I don't want to come off as an expert or a doctor, but I have broken my foot before. And I think that's one of those injuries that is really easy to convince yourself you can like play through or you're fine when you're not, and you can end up re-breaking it. I also know that Greg Olsen had a similar foot injury and it kind of nagged him. And that's sort of what made his career maybe end a little bit sooner than it should have. So if I'm the Colts, I want to make a push. to win. And I know that having Carson Wentz sit extra time might be the difference between being competitive this year and not.
Yeah.
But I don't know if pushing them out super quick, especially Nelson. I mean, that's a franchise guy, and Wentz maybe has the potential to be a franchise guy too for them, or that's how they're viewing him. So I wouldn't rush this. I do think it might take a little bit longer than 5 weeks.
If I'm the Colts, first of all, you pay less in draft capital if Carson Wentz sits. Right. So I'm letting
I didn't
him
even think about that.
I'm letting him sit. That's a no-brainer.
I don't know if I want to tank the season to save myself one round.
You're not tanking the season. You're saying, okay, we're gonna try and get Carson Wentz healthy, and we're also gonna, what is it? They'd give up a second instead of a first.
Yeah, because the threshold is 70%. So if he misses the beginning of the season, it would probably work out. But I think the Colts. What's interesting about the Colts is what they're gonna do about it. Because I think you guys are right. I think the 5 weeks, be ready for week 1, is very optimistic. I think missing the first quarter of the season is more likely. And the training camp battle, apparently Jacob Eason, their 4th-round quarterback from last year, it just had coming off like his best days of camp. Looks all right. But there's also Sam Ehlinger, the Texas rookie. I think they drafted him in the 6th or 7th round, who is also really impressed. So, and to hear him talk about Ehlinger, they're like, he's calm. He's got moxie. The coach described it as an it factor, the all-important it factor that no one can quantify. He has it. He's likable. He is doing well. And, preseason, I would imagine that they would want to see what they have in a game setting before they make any sort of move. And I feel like if they do well in the preseason, it would not surprise me if we see Eason or Ehlinger starting week 1. But there are other options, Mariota.
The concerning thing about that is, are you really wanting to bank your starting quarterback based on how they perform in preseason? Because we've seen it happen before where a quarterback goes into preseason, looks good, and then gets into the regular season and is a disaster. It happens all the time. There's some truth in that,
yeah.
There is. I would say this, though. Why are they the backup quarterbacks? They are the backup quarterbacks for this situation. And I feel like the Colts would like to trust their scouting. They would like to trust their eyes, and they would like to trust their players. If they wanted Mariota to be their backup quarterback, he could be their backup quarterback. If they wanted Mariota to back up Carson Wentz over, Ehlinger and Eason, they had the opportunity to do that. Although maybe, I'm trying to think of the timeline. Did Carson Wentz get traded before or after free agency? I don't know.
Because there was also the issue of Mariota getting cut late.
Yeah, there's some issues there, but I feel like, you've got your team right now in training camp, and I feel like, unless they suck, if they look good in practice and preseason, I feel like the mentality that NFL teams will have is they are our guys. We gave them this opportunity, and now that it's staring us in the face, we got to trust our evaluations, and we got to trust our players to pull through for us. So if they suck in the preseason, it might be a different story. But if they perform well, I bet they'll.
Well, it's not even about don't roll with Eason or Ehlinger, right? Because they could go out and get Phillip Rivers in theory. My thing is, do you really want to play this back and forth where you're like, oh, Eason's our guy, but now Ellinger's our guy? Because you want to build chemistry with the offense.
I don't know if you're playing back and forth. You're just having a battle. So it's not. They haven't come out and said Ellinger's starting week 1 or
I'm pretty sure they've said Eason. Haven't they said that Eason's kind of the guy right now?
If he's
Eason was that. He's probably getting reps with the number 1 team right now as any.
I feel like people maybe read into that too much. Anytime, at any point, a team's going to have a depth chart. So, okay, Eason's their number 1 right now, and then Ellinger's the backup, and then maybe it's a battle, and Ehlinger could take over if he outperforms Eason. Yeah. I don't think that's going to be that confusing for the rest of the team. I think the main concern is I could see a scenario where maybe the Colts don't feel like Eason and Ehlinger are the best options, but they're the options that they have, and they're cheap, and they're more developmental guys than like the best possible backup they could have gotten.
I think cheap is kind of the key word there.
Because I know they had already invested a lot into getting Carson Wentz, so maybe it wasn't that they felt Eason was their best option as a backup. They felt like it was the best value as a backup option. But if they like how they look in camp, they won't make a move, and if they don't like how they look in camp, they will.
What I'm rooting for is they get Nick Foles, though. I think Nick Foles replacing Wentz again, and like maybe if he like starts winning a lot, and then it's the whole competition again.
The Colts win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
If I want Nick Foles, I want them to move with Nick Foles, and they could probably get Nick Foles for like nothing because I'm sure the Bears want him out. But like that would be what I root for, is like they get Nick Foles, he plays well, and then there's a whole competition again. I just think that would be so funny.
That would be hilarious.
I don't know if that's what ends up happening, because you don't want to make a mistake and then compound the mistake by throwing more resources at quarterbacks you aren't sure are good, you know? Like you don't want to make the issue all of a sudden like now you've thrown a second and now another second and now like there's just tons of resources like at the quarterback position. I don't know if they want to do that, but right. I'm rooting for Foles.
Foles would be hilarious. But speaking of, quarterback movement, there is some rumors of Deshaun Watson to the Eagles. And we already know what the price tag is, right? It's going to end up being Jalen Hurts, probably a starting defensive player, combined with like 4 or 5 high draft picks. Do you see Eagles making that kind of a move?
No, I don't think any team can make a move for him. Because not only is it, what did this guy do, but you don't know if he's going to play. I kind of don't think that the situation's resolving itself in the next couple of weeks. Not the legal thing, but just trade wise. I think we're a lot farther away to the end of this sort of saga than maybe some people think. That's my guess. I don't really have any strong opinions on it. Because you got to see how the whole legal process turns out before you see.
Because you're not making that trade.
That's how I feel right now. And we're really what? So the Eagles would make a trade for a guy in the middle of this and then start him week 1. I don't know. I think Watson doesn't play this year, and I think you see how the rest of that plays out. You see what the NFL does. You see what the courts do. And then you go from there.
I think that
I'd agree with you.
My original take is that Watson wouldn't play this year. And every time I change my mind on something, it seems like my initial gut feeling was what I should have stuck with. I'm not sure. I don't think the NFL cares about legal issues. I don't think they're moral. I feel like every NFL team is frustrated with the courts and they're probably just like, we don't even know. We're trying to let him play. So I feel like the NFL and the teams that want Watson are champing at the bit to get him on their team. I don't trust them to be moral at all with all the bad players that have gotten chances.
I would have understood that if we were still dealing with the civil cases, but I'm pretty sure haven't there been some women who have? There are some criminal cases that have opened up now.
Criminal cases now. My original take was we'll see what happens, but at this point. You just got to see how it plays out before I think I have a strong opinion. That's what I'm saying.
If it's in criminal court, there's no way an NFL team is going to make that trade before before anything comes to fruition. That would be beyond stupid. Not even from a moral perspective, just from a logistic. Why would you do that?
Fair, but if we're talking, okay, yeah, I can maybe see that. I just don't have any faith in, and I think NFL teams. I don't know what to think, but anyway,
I get it, Theo.
From a football standpoint, the Eagles are weird because I don't know if I want anyone on the Eagles. Seriously, I think the Eagles have no players of value really. Hurts maybe, but I don't know if NFL teams really. Hurts as this big asset.
Their D line's pretty good.
Okay, of old players and players who have a year or 2 left on their contract. Fletcher Cox is 31, maybe.
Fletcher Cox is one of the best interior defensive
Brandon
linemen.
Graham is 32 with
Brandon Graham's not
it's a lot of Javon Hargrave maybe is a tradable depth piece. Ryan Kerrigan they just signed. They've got a lot of depth. Rodney McLeod is a guy who is probably underrated who I would ask for, but he only has a year left on his deal. They've got so many old players that I just don't know if their value is I don't know how valuable they are. I don't know if I would want them if I have to if they're old, then I have to sign them to a contract again, like in a year or two. So that's the biggest, like, if we're talking like just like logistics, I feel like there's a lot of teams that could make a better pitch than the Eagles, unless they give unless the Eagles give like 5 first-round picks away. But then you've got Watson throwing to this team of expiring contracts and invaluable players with now no tools in the toolbox to retool. So like, I think the Eagles would be dying to make this deal because they just hate Jalen Hurts, and I don't think they think he's the guy. And they
really do hate Jalen Hurts.
They want to bench him.
I've never seen anything like this.
They want to bench him, and I don't think they believe in him. And I feel like of all the teams in the league, they probably feel the least confident in their quarterback situation. But I think you guys are onto something where it's like there definitely is a lot to get worked out, and this probably won't happen in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we could sit here and talk about the football side of it forever, but the football side of it kind of doesn't matter until this itself gets worked out. Yeah. And I understand that NFL teams do not have the biggest history of caring about this type of stuff, but I don't think any team is insane enough to trade like they're in like 5 first-round draft picks for a guy who's still going through all. Like no one's going to do that. I think this is really far from being done, and you just got to see what happens with the rest of it, particularly with the criminal cases now being stacked on
that's
top
the
of
big
everything.
thing. It's like, again, if it was civil cases, I would understand because there's probably nothing would end up happening to Watson after he filed a settlement. But in a criminal case, I wouldn't want to take that kind of a risk. In other news, two NFL teams had some fights going on, and they handled it completely differently. So the Giants had a fight break out with Daniel Jones at the bottom of the pile, and they ended up running for the rest of practice. And everyone that reported on it said that it was like a sight to behold, right? Like Joe Judge was on it, like he was going nuts. And then the Lions got in a fight, and they handled it totally differently. They thought it was like cool, I guess. I don't know. How do you guys feel about which situation, or how do you think, which coach do you think handled it better? I guess is the question.
Lions.
That I'm going.
I'd rather play for. I would not want to play for Joe Judge. Maybe I'm just soft, but like a coach, like if there's some guy got hit like in a non-tackle practice, someone got tackled. And then they all like got in each other's face, and there was a big scrum, and Daniel Jones was in it. It happens, it happens. And I'd be like, and then to run the rest of practice just seems miserable. And like Kelvin Benjamin had a thing, like he's like, Joe Judge is so toxic. He's yelling at guys. Like, I think that the idea where like Dan Campbell's method is there was a disagreement. It's a physical, high emotion, like emotional sport. There's a fight, good, like get it worked out and let's move on. I think that's better for the players. Like that's the situation I would rather be in. Like as a player, that's the situation I would respect more rather than like, oh my God, I'm running for the rest of practice and Judge is pissed at me, even though I was just defending my guy from getting tackled. And like, that's my take.
I think when there's a fight in the locker room, you kind of want it to blow over and have the guys still be good with each other afterwards. And if you say like, yeah, okay, we're going to fight sometimes, cool, great, let's keep going. It's a lot easier to move past it than if you like make a humongous deal about it and stop practice and make everyone do like sprints for an hour. Then it's like, that's the thing that happened that day. You're never going to forget that. It's harder to get past it the bigger a deal you make of it. And those guys probably want to go in there. They want to, like that's the type of stuff that is going to happen in football sometimes. And understanding that, and obviously you don't want the guys beating each other up, but not making a big deal out of it makes it easier to get past as far as like the actual fighting.
I think
not being cool with each other part.
I think it kind of depends, right? Because if it's like a situation in a non-contact practice where, so-and-so, accidentally went a little harder than they should have. But if you're in a situation where guys are just being disrespectful to each other and it's like very obviously not like a good team atmosphere, then at that point you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a huge difference, and maybe in the Giants' case, because I wasn't there. Maybe in the Giants' case, Joe Judge sees that this is not how I want my team to be. Maybe this doesn't feel like a team. So I'm going to make it feel like I'm going to, take control.
That's a good point.
Quick.
That's a good point. Yeah, it totally does depend on the context of it. And I guess I'm assuming the same context for both of them. It's hard to say who handled it better when you weren't there. I'm not going to lie.
Not even that we weren't at either. You would have to be at both.
You'd have to be at both to know who handled it better, because a fight breaking out isn't necessarily the same thing. So that's a good point. So maybe both of them handled it the best way.
Yeah, I would say... Yeah, I think Judge handles things in a weird way all the time. Like, he tapes tennis balls to people's hands and we're like, well, you're not going to hold. He's a very like football guy in that regard, where he's like, everyone's running, coaches are running. We're not
coaches are running.
Coaches are running. I just feel like that kind of mentality is a little bit, if I was a player, I would rather avoid all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's, for the situation was someone got hit when they weren't supposed to. And the Giants are all cool. Like, they obviously interviewers talked all about it, after practice, and the Giants are like, yeah, we're all cool. So I don't think it's like detrimental, like, to the team in any big way. But I would say, like, as a monolith, it's better to just be like, yeah, let's move on, instead of getting pissed and like making everyone run for.
I know, like, Belichick would just send people home for getting in fights. Like, he did that with Brandon Cooks. And I think it was Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore. They got in a fight, and Belichick just sent them home.
That's also not. I think that's
not a terrible way to handle it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if you don't want to be here, bye. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely hard to figure out who handled it better when you weren't at both. But I think we should move on to preseason. As
there's
the day
a football game today. There is a preseason football game on today.
That's weird to wrap your head around. That's weird to
I'm so excited. I'm
gonna
so
watch
excited.
Football. And it's the two most boring teams. I looked at the Steelers backups and the Cowboys backups, and I'm like, none of these guys. The only guy I scouted was like oh God, the name's escaping me. He's from Stanford. He's some white wide receiver from Stanford. Like, there is like no. But there's a preseason game on today, and we'll
get to see awesome. Dwayne Haskins. Nice.
That is, apparently he's lighting it up in practice. Apparently he's a new man. He's a new man. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I
refuse to believe that.
Well, we'll see tonight. That's the big story.
I'm interested to see Haskins. I don't know how good he's going to be, because he was pretty rough for Washington, but it's at least something to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, anyway. I mean, it'll just be good to have football back. That's really all I'm excited for. I can watch basketball, but football's my love, man. But other players that we're looking forward to seeing in the preseason, I think Zach Wilson's someone we have to look out for, because he's been kind of on and off in camp, and I know I said you don't want to base everything off what you see in preseason, but when you haven't seen anything steadily good in camp, that's what you need. You need to see preseason at this point.
He's been good in camp. Like, he's had
good moments, but I've also heard he's had like some pretty bad.
He's moments. He's a rookie going from BYU to the NFL. So I'm not like I would agree that there's some stuff that I've heard about Zach Wilson. Like, some of the deep balls have been a little bit underthrown. He's kind of avoiding the middle of the field and just going like to the outside, which he did a lot in college. So like, there's definitely some problems in college that haven't magically just worked themselves out so far. But what I'm excited for the Jets is Michael Carter, who I really like, and Elijah Moore, who every third tweet on my timeline is talking about how Elijah Moore burned someone. So for the Jets, I'm excited to see all the rookies, because their best lineman might be a rookie, their best wide receiver might be a rookie, their best running back might be a rookie, and their best
quarterback might be better than Becton?
That's what I mean. Apparently he's lighting up in training. I'm just going off what the Jets are saying, that he's looked better than Becton in training camp. So I'm excited to see Jets, just because like they're so young.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's a weird. We don't know how that team is going to look exactly. I'm really excited for Rashad Bateman. He's been lighting it up in camp too, from what I've seen. And what's exciting about him too is that he has the chance to be the number one receiver on a team competing for the Super Bowl day one. It's not impossible to think that he could pull that off. And most importantly, he's on my fantasy team. So I really need that to happen.
You know what? Hold on. Timeout. Not literally timeout, but like, I get criticized for only talking about the Browns. I get criticized for bringing up the Browns all the time. How many times has Matt brought up his fantasy team?
I think it's the running bit. The difference is that the players that I have strong feelings about that I want to talk about are the guys that I go get in fantasy. It's the other. It's not I get a guy in fantasy and then I decide to talk about him. It's a guy I want to talk about because I really like them, and then I get them in fantasy. And it's just funny to bring up every time because I have this huge roster on that team.
Versus
I mean,
that's
the other. Theo, he was your guy too.
He was my second highest rated guy.
I really like him. And he's just in a really cool position, and it's really important that the Ravens receivers are better this year. So it'll be a big deal.
And I think Lamar, I mean, you've got Bateman. They've invested how many high draft picks in wide receivers, and I really liked Hollywood Brown coming out of the draft, really liked him. And I like Bateman even more. So if both of them end up being busts, then I start to raise my eyebrows a little bit at like the if you can even be a good wide receiver on that Ravens team, because I see, Bateman burning, Marlon Humphrey, and I see Bateman just absolutely doing everything right for the Gopher. Like, I don't know. Bateman, I agree, is someone I'm really excited to see.
Bateman should be awesome.
Well, it seems like they've sort of positioned themselves to stretch the field a little bit more. I mean, with Andrews and Watkins and Hollywood and
Bateman,
Bateman, they're really trying to stretch the field.
J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, a good offensive line. Like, I don't think the wide receiving core and the weapons are an excuse for Lamar this year. I think they've invested too much in that position of players that I get that they're young and they're rookies, and if they're bad, you just label them busts and say they were never any good. I feel like that's a little bit of a slippery slope. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see. And I assume Lamar is going to get some preseason. So, but yeah, the Ravens are a team I'm very high on. I have faith in Lamar. This is not me saying
no.
We all love Lamar.
I like Lamar a lot, and I think that he's going to have a good passing season. But if he doesn't, then I might, not like Lamar so much, But I do have faith in him.
I loved Lamar coming out of college. It pissed me off that he had to go to the Ravens.
What do you mean he had to? They were really good. That was like a really good situation for him to go to.
Yeah,
Browns
but
fan.
Right, Browns fan. How could I forget? Blaiden, who are you excited to see in this preseason?
Oh man, who am I excited to see?
If you say a Browns player, you're getting 10 points subtracted from the first game of your fantasy.
All right. Well, I was gonna say Donovan Peoples-Jones. No, I'm playing.
That counts. 10 points.
I know
gone.
it doesn't. That does not count. No. In all seriousness, though, I am excited to see like Javonte Williams is my guy. I keep saying like sleeper for offensive rookie of the year. That's my guy. Super excited to see Trey Lance. Obviously, he's been lighting it up in camp. And I think the only other piece that I would really like to see is how these Patriots pieces kind of all fit together. Because the Patriots, added a lot of pieces to that offense. And it'll be really interesting to see kind of how they mesh together. Yeah. Not to mention, I've heard N'Keal Harry's been doing pretty well.
Yeah. I think Mac Jones will be interesting to watch too. If he lights it up in preseason, he's going to get some starting week one hype for sure. Another guy or another competition that's something to look out for in preseason: Locke versus Bridgewater on Denver.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a scenario in which Bridgewater starts week one?
Oh, yeah. And the reports are that it's pretty much a draw, that they've played about the same. Their levels have been Bridgewater wins a day, Locke wins a day. But I would say that from what I've heard, neither has looked amazing. Neither has looked like... they've been mistake free. They've been awesome. They've been crushing it. So, again, I've been really high on the Broncos, and I guess, that does hurt a little bit to hear, but I'm excited to see, do they go, it's because it's an interesting hypothetical floor versus ceiling. That's something, this is like a perfect in a vacuum, like guy with high floor, guy with low floor and high ceiling, or low ceiling. And that's a very interesting dynamic to me. And what they end up going with.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like pick your poison, Maybe they say, okay, Locke and Bridgewater have looked about as good, but that doesn't mean they've looked anything alike.
Right.
So I wonder if I would say generally, not knowing how they're actually looking in camp, if they were playing the same and you had a team with a great defense and really good weapons and you're confident in your run game, you'd probably go with the guy with the high floor. low ceiling. But maybe the best strategy is just to see what Locke can do, and if it doesn't work out, you have Bridgewater right there, and you don't let it go too far. That's probably what you end up doing, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, if Locke's horrible, yeah, I get it, but like, I think you just got to roll with it. Give yourself a chance to at least stretch the field. Especially you have Sutton back. Like, that's huge. You're going to have an incredible receiving core. You want to utilize that the best that you can. But are there any like big, or maybe not even big rookies, just like rookies that you're excited to see in general?
Not a rookie, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm interested to see Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And how he does coming off that knee injury. I think, you tweeted out yesterday, Theo, about how apparently that knee injury is really bothering him just from a mental standpoint. And every time a dude gets a major injury, I always think, like, if that was me, there's no way I'd be done. Just mentally, like, how could you trust that knee again after something so bad?
You know what, Matt? I'll talk about that. So when I broke my collarbone, the first time I came back, I was very hesitant. Right? It's like it's like it's not something that you're just like you're going to come back right away and you're just going to be normal. You can't do that. Yeah. So when you come back from a serious injury, you're not mentally the same right away at all. So
I think
I don't know if how much it'll hurt him long term, but at least in the short term, it's reasonable that he could be, out of it maybe.
And then how much do you really put him out there for preseason though? Because he needs to face some real pass rush to get used to that and get comfortable with it again after the knee injury before week 1. You can't just go into week 1. It's like, here's your first game back from major injury, right? But at the same time, I mean, you don't want to play a guy coming off a major injury in preseason. So it's sort of give and take. You can't have it both ways.
Especially when apparently they've looked the way they've looked. And that the way you looked is that they've gotten their face caved in by the defense every day. And maybe it was different today. I'm sure practice is probably wrapping up there right now.
You know what my strategy would be? Just off the top of my head? I'm throwing him in late in the game against the backups with the starting offensive line if I'm the Bengals. I'm serious. I think don't put him in against the starting pass rushers to start with. Game 1, you go out there, you let who is their backup again? Finley still?
No, Finley got traded. It is, I don't know. It's Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen.
Yeah. You put him out there against the ones, you run the ones out there, and then when whoever they're playing goes to the backups or the third strings or the guys who are trying to make the roster, you put in your starting offensive line to give Burrow the cleanest possible pocket. I think I totally think that's what I would do. And then you slowly work him up to going starter versus starter, and then hopefully he's ready for week 1.
Yeah. I think that's not a bad idea. And with the Bengals, I'm interested to see, how they look in preseason because the reports out of practices are bleak and, it's you practice, you play how you practice. And if that's true, maybe the defense is just awesome, but somehow I don't think that's quite the case with the Bengals.
Bengals defense is just on another level this year.
Yeah. I'm excited to see this. This is the first year I've really scouted a bunch of guys. I scouted, I had a bunch of, not everyone obviously, but I scouted a good amount of players and I'm excited to see my sleepers. I'm excited to see Peyton Turner, a guy who I had a really high grade on and he won the first round. I'm excited to see Jamin Davis, my linebacker 1. I'm excited to see Javon Holland, my safety 1. All these guys that I watched in college. I'm like, these guys are a little bit better than I thought they might be. And now I want to see, I want to test, as a scout, I'm interested to see, what my initial track record is going to be if I suck or not. So I'm excited to see Peyton. I'm excited to see a lot of the guys that are at the top. Michael Carter is one of those guys, but yeah.
Speaking of Jamin Davis, remind me about Washington football team. If Heineke comes out and is really good in preseason, that's going to be an awesome storyline.
He's the next Kurt Warner. He's the next Kurt Warner. Hey, and Tim Boyle, Jared Goff and Tim Boyle. Look, Tim Boyle is a guy who is he has the record for highest passer rating in preseason or something. That's the one thing in Detroit where it's not on anyone's radar, but Packer fans know Tim Boyle is a preseason hero. So if Jared Goff struggles a little bit and Tim Boyle looks like preseason Tim Boyle, that's another one where it could be
Have you seen Jared Goff camp videos?
No. I heard that
he looks like just so chill. He looks like he is having the time of his life.
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that Goff might not be that horrible this year if he's looking that good in camp. Because I feel like, I don't want to say that I believe in him all of a sudden, but there's definitely a lot of people.
Line.
They do. Yeah, he has a good offensive line. Doesn't have the best weapons, but I feel like there's this expectation that, or maybe I've even thought myself or said earlier podcasts, like, oh, he's gonna be horrible. He's gonna be terrible. He might just be okay. He might not be that bad. It's probably an overreaction. Playing with McVay helps, but he still has a good offensive line. He's still a first overall pick for a reason. He still has some talent. And if the Lions are run heavy and they don't ask him to do a ton, he could be okay.
No, I kind of feel the same. My prediction for them was 5-12. He was around the 20th or 22nd ranked.
Hold on, you're giving Detroit 5 wins?
Yeah, they have a
good culture. They have a good offensive line. I could see that. Yeah,
they have a tough schedule.
One more thing. I'm excited to see FELEIPE Franks.
Oh yeah,
to see FELEIPE Franks,
our guy,
dude. When he throws his first pass to Frank Darby, my favorite ASU player, who was drafted in the 5th round. If he completes a pass to Darby, if he throws a touchdown to Darby, there's going to be like, my apartment's going to be like glowing, and there's going to be like energy and like kinetic. Like, I'm going to be like shaking really fast.
He's going to like turn into the Avatar.
You know what those two guys have in common?
What do they have in common?
Both are on my fantasy team.
Both are on your fantasy team. FELEIPE. Everyone's on your. It was so funny. We
everyone is on that fantasy team. But when I talk about the Browns,
my fantasy team. Anyway, it's so funny. But I'm at this point, it might FELEIPE Franks. I don't know.
FELEIPE Franks
my day
is me
2
with
grade
Dax
on
Milne.
him did not age well as he went undrafted. What's most likely is he's on like the practice squad or like released or something. But for 4 weeks, he is going to get some playing time, and I'm going to make sure people know about it.
Oh, I'm going to be the same way with Dax Milne. Any Dax Milne sort of highlight, if he makes a block, like that's it. I'm going ham.
It's over. If he pancakes anyone.
If he gets a pancake,
But that's what the preseason is all about. You gotta latch on to your bottom of the roster guy who's gonna get cut and never seen again. But for 4 weeks, you're gonna make sure people know they're
Dax
around.
Milne's not getting cut. But I think that wraps things up for us today. Actual preseason NFL games are happening, and we're gonna, be watching them all,
Heating
Dak
it up with
in
a spoon.
4K.
I might not watch. Blaiden might be lying. I don't think I'm going to watch all of the preseason games. I might miss a few.
So now you're making me look like a liar. That's okay. NBA free agency will still be kind of hot, probably. I'm sure, Matt, you'll be following that more than the NFL preseason. Tons of content coming your way on TikTok, YouTube, podcast channels, etc. Don't miss out. And as always, from Matt, Theo, and Blaiden, no nicknames today. We will catch you guys on the flippity flop. And without further ado, the Stay Hot TikTok Fantasy League members.
I must alert the others.
Watch what? Drafted this man to be their new punter. Get out!
This is an awful take.
I do think I'd win. My gravestone can't say killed by podcasters.
I've never received more hate for anything than I have for my taste in ice cream.
They don't know a damn thing about me, and they don't know that I'm that fucking guy.